Do you sometimes lose control? Anger, strong feelings, meltdowns. It's distressing for you and for other people. Might feel a little bit like we have been possessed. Don't know where this came from. It came up over nothing, the straw that broke the camel's back. Well, that's what this video is about. This video is about helping you to recognize what's going on for you, so that when you are distressed, dysregulated, angry, whatever it is, when you're experiencing that, you have more of a sense what's going on, and that gives us more of an opportunity to calm ourselves down and to stop ourselves erupting. So I'd like to teach you a way of being able to self-regulate and understand what's going on for you. And I want to do it using traffic lights. But before we get onto traffic lights, I'd like to ask you, how do you feel right now? What feelings are arising in you? What's happening for you? Very small minority of people will be very comfortable with that question. They'll notice several feelings at play, nuances, complicated interplay of emotions that are informing them on their state in this moment, and that will help them to get an understanding of what they're thinking and how they're behaving. And this person with high emotional intelligence, they have had a pretty secure attachment growing up. As a baby, when they were sad and they were crying, mum would look at them in the eye, they'd see they were upset, they'd comfort them. When they were angry and frustrated, that would be mirrored back to them. They would be cooled from their anger. When they smiled, mum would smile back at them. There'd be a sense that their feelings are being respected, mirrored, and not anything to be feared. And most of the time, those caregivers would be reliable people that they could depend on. To make things even nicer for our theoretical person who is in flow with their emotions, they have had a really easy life where they have not suffered oppression. There's no sense of conditionality in how they're growing up. They weren't bullied in school. There is no one telling them this is how you need to behave. They have been able to flow their whole life through, and because of that, they trust their feelings. They might have had a lot of therapy, and they are really in touch with themselves. And not a lot of bad has really happened to them, or when it has, they've got the resilience to get through it. They're neurotypical, and they're also pretty unrealistic and slightly fictitious. Very few of us have had the ideal caregivers. Even if our caregivers try their damnedest, and I believe that for most folks, they try their damnedest, they let us down. Most of us have faced bullying in school or have bullied ourselves out of our own insecurities. We've entered into workplaces where we feel we don't belong, and there will be a sense of resonance as I speak with feeling like we need to shift ourselves in order to fit in. The most fundamental of human needs is to belong, and we will do just about damn well anything in order to belong, including losing a sense of distrust in ourselves and what we feel. We're at a social gathering that we really don't want to be there. We feel bored, frustrated, and we dislike a lot of people there, but we sure as hell can't say that, so we just mask, pretend we don't feel it. And then to add some more weight to it, there are a number of people who aren't neurotypical. A lot of neurodivergent folk will experience alexithymia, a condition where it's difficult to notice feelings in ourselves, or at least verbalize them or understand what they are, and so to struggle to notice feelings in other people. I could talk about gender. We might think that as men, we very much struggle to access any of our feelings besides anger, but the truth is it's not just men who are less emotionally intelligent. Yes, we are somewhat conditioned to not express vulnerability in many circles outside of recovery. That's sort of how we're conditioned as men, but women too. You know, how many of your feelings are valid versus how many of your feelings aren't. It's kind of part of a human condition to belong, and as part of that, we shut ourselves down. And that is why we sometimes don't know when we are dysregulated. We don't know when we're in the red zone. And then if on top of that we've experienced trauma, abusive relationships, if we have been knocked by bereavements, if we're going through a change in life like menopause and our hormones are fluctuating, then it's even harder still to be able to stay regulated. And at times we enter into that red zone where we have lost control and we don't really know how or why we've got there, but we've gone there. And so using the traffic lights, this is what this video is about. Rather than trying to expect you to carry round, to be a motion wheel and to be able to identify the finer details of exactly how you feel, I want you just to realise when you are feeling good, when you're feeling green, when you're feeling a bit in the middle, amber, and when you've lost control, when you're in the red zone. And if we can get to that place where we are more aware when we're tipping over the edge, then that gives us a bit more control. So before I go into a bit more detail around the lights, the green, amber and the red, or talk about other theories, for example in autism around zones of regulation and particulars of what we might be looking out for, I would like to plug a video I made on how to gain self-awareness using a hot cross bun. And that video that you can check out on my channel is talking a little bit more around the CBT idea of how we can break our experience down into our thoughts, our feelings, our bodily sensations, and our behaviours. So if we're struggling to access our thoughts, maybe we can go more into our feelings. If we're struggling to access our feelings, maybe we can look at what we're doing, or we can look at what presents in our body. And different people will have different ways of communicating. It's part of a process of counselling, trying to work out a person's how they best communicate and how they best access themselves. For some folks, for example, we will spend a lot of time just accessing strong feelings. There's a catharsis from grieving, from expressing them. For other people, they like to do things that are more playful or creative, using imagery or imagination. Some folks are more narrative based. We talk about what's happening in a very thoughtful way and then gain insights from that. And some people are a bit more somatic, and we spend a lot of time talking about what we're feeling in the body and why. The point being that any of those are an in, and any of them are equally as valid. So don't you dare say to yourself that just because you don't feel things strongly, you're in any way defective. You are not. Shameless self-promotion over, and back to the video talking about traffic lights. So to summarise where we're up to so far, our emotional process of what we're feeling can be very complex and multifaceted. Our feelings influence how we behave, and sometimes behaviour that we don't accept is informed by our feelings, but most of us, particularly when we're first starting therapy, if we have had trauma in our life, if we are neurodiverse, or if we've been conditioned through various different societal, cultural and familial practices, will struggle to know what our internal affective state is, and so we may act up and move into that red zone, behaving in ways that feel shameful or difficult or damaging without having a sense of control over that behaviour. Building emotional intelligence and literacy is something that comes steadily within therapy by being understood and accepted, which allows us to understand and accept our own feelings. And expecting ourselves to be completely emotionally literate and to understand the ebbs and flows of what's going on with our internal state is sometimes unrealistic, particularly in the heat of a moment or when there have been a lot of pressures going on in our lives. And for some of us, if we have had traumas in our lives, if we are neurodiverse, if we have had a particularly limiting culture that we've grown up in, we'll genuinely struggle to get to that place of being able to have an in-depth feelings wheel internalized into our conscious. And so to simplify things, rather than having to think of complex feelings, what we're feeling in this moment, what's going on for us, what's happening in my body, I propose traffic lights. Are we in green? Are we in amber? Or are we in red at the moment? So firstly, our green zone. This is where people ask how we're doing and we say, I feel fine. And we genuinely mean it. We may even feel happy in this place or have pleasant feelings, but we're certainly got no sense of anything being wrong. Our senses aren't overwhelmed. We have a reasonable amount of focus. We're not overly bored. We have enough stimulation. Our physical health isn't too bad. We're doing good. Now, this is the stage of a traffic light in real life of our car where we tend to just go through it and we don't really reflect or pause or take any time to notice what's going. It's go mode, and that's often where we are. We only notice when things are going wrong. But actually, when we're in that green zone, when we're reflective, when our affect isn't overwhelming, when our sensory needs aren't overwhelmed, that is a really good place to be able to reflect. We can reflect on times that we've been in the other zones, what was happening, what went right, what went wrong. And we can also reflect on what's going on for us to be in the green zone. There can be a sense of gratitude, for example, at the end of the day. Often we can be very good at focus on negatives. That's something quite human to look at deficits. But looking at moments that have felt green, what was it about that moment that was green for me? And maybe there was a moment that for you is normally more amber or red. Let's say there's a stressful interview or a social situation or some kind of thing that normally taxes you, but you feel all right, you feel quite green doing that today. Well, there's ample opportunity to reflect on why was this green? Clients will often come to counselling with this belief that they can only talk about things that are going badly in their life, talk about problems and not talk about things that are going well. And this is true that when you see me, you will talk about stuff that you probably can't talk to anyone else about. You'll talk about stuff that's shameful. You'll talk about your sex life. You'll talk to me about your childhood, about your internal state. Lots of things that you probably wouldn't talk to the general public about. But there can be this belief that, oh, I can't talk to Simon about things that have gone well today or about that I'm feeling good. And actually, there's a real benefit. It actually starts to reprogram our brain to put on that discipline of gratitude and to recognise what's going well for us and to bask in that and to, you know what, darn well acknowledge how well we are doing. There doesn't seem to be a word in English that's positive for self-love. There's words like selfishness or arrogance, but actually, if we can't love ourselves, how are we meant to encourage other people to love us? So, green zone, bask in it, stay there, love yourself, acknowledge how you've got here. Think about how you can enhance those moments, how you can keep green. And if you shift from green towards amber or red, put that in perspective. That hasn't ruined the moments of green. Don't treat it as a black and white, a binary. You had to halt, you had to have a red moment, but a lot of your day was green, so well, hey, let's acknowledge that. Our next stage is amber. In the amber zone, like the back of this wall here, you might start to notice feelings bubbling up for you. You may start to feel anxious, afraid, a little bit of frustration, not quite bubbling up into full-blown anger. You may feel upset. You may start to notice sensory overwhelm. Maybe the noises around you are too loud, the lights are too bright. You may notice that you are beginning to feel bored, disinterested, maybe even irritated in a social interaction. In the amber zone, you may notice your body communicating to you. Maybe that your shoulders are right up here. Maybe that you are clenching your hands together and you notice it. You might notice that your teeth are grinding, that you start to feeling a headache, you're hot, you feel something unpleasant in the body. Maybe aches are playing up and you're in pain. You may notice intrusive thoughts, negative thoughts that prickle in your mind and you think, oh, these aren't very pleasant. You may notice that you're feeling quite critical, either of yourself or of other people. all of these are clues that we are entering into the amber zone. And the thing that distinguishes amber from red zone is that we have control here. This is where, if we are a car, this is where there are lights coming up on the dashboard saying, should really change the oil. It's not that the car has broken down, it's that we need to do something to fix it. We need to top up the gas, we need to take it for a service. And it's the same for our body. If we start getting cues that we are entering into the amber zone, well, that's a really good point for us to be able to notice that we are beginning to be dysregulated and to seek ways to solve that dysregulation before it escalates into the red zone where we do lose control. It might be worth thinking about what cues, what signs you might experience if you're entering into amber zone. And if there's a loved one who you're often around, someone that supports you, it could even be useful to do this as an exercise with them, to have a list of cues, have a list of triggers that might push you into that amber zone, and to think about ways that you might be able to regulate yourself if you start to reach that point. I'm going to plug another one of my videos actually. There's a video I made on grounding techniques, and that video is for if we are kind of partway between amber and red, really starting to lose control, haven't completely lost it yet, so it's sort of this midway point. And it's ways for us to be able to ground ourselves back into the present moment so that we don't either become overstimulated and do things that might put us or others at risk, or understimulated and dissociative. Our final traffic light is the red zone. It's in the red zone that we may experience meltdowns if we are autistic, and we might almost feel like we have been possessed or acted out or done things that are highly distressing, both for us and for other people. We may have shouted, stomped, screamed, thrown something. It's this red zone where we might act on our temper, we may say things we regret to people who we love, we might swear or cause a scene in public. If we are in recovery, it is the red zone where we might pick up a drink again, we might lapse and we don't really have awareness, you become powerless in that moment over addiction. Red zone might feature more ideation, negative thoughts that we don't really want, negative, horrible thoughts towards ourselves, suicidal thoughts, for example. We may hurt ourselves in the red zone. We may hurt other people in the red zone, especially people who are really close to us. It's when we are snappy, we ruminate on it afterwards thinking, oh, I was such an awful person in that moment when I was in the red zone. And those are the moments that people come to therapy for. Those are the moments when they've done horrible things, when they have offended, when they feel shameful, when they've lost close relationships over being in that red zone. And they come to me wanting to be able to control themselves, thinking, Simon, I've done it again. I've been in that place. I've done this awful thing. I am a terrible person. The amount of shame that people internalize from going into that red zone. And like I said, very often when we are in the red zone, we have very little control. Control was in the amber zone. If we are a car and we get up to the red traffic light, what do? We halt. We stop. And when we're experiencing red zone moments, when that's where you are on the traffic light, that's kind of it. We're desperately trying to regain moments of awareness, of attention, of trying to engage our cognitive brain again, and just to be able to stop. If we're in meltdown, it may be because of the environment. Maybe our senses are overwhelmed. Get away from the triggering environment. If it's something else that's triggered us, let's say we are angry because the house is untidy, then get into a different room. It's moments in these red zones when really what we want to be doing is escaping. And people don't like being in that zone. No one does. Nor do they like other people being in that zone. And often it's tempting, particularly if our conflict style is more emotive and we want to solve things straight away rather than going to have some time alone. I'm very much an introvert, so conflicts happen and I just want to spend time on my own. But if you've got a partner, it's different to that. That can be difficult because you're in the red zone. That's not the moment to talk about how you're doing. It's not the moment to calm down, dear. No, when we're in the red zone, we just need to stop. We just need to cool down. We just need to wait, like at a traffic light. And after a while, the red will pass and we'll go back to maybe amber sometime, back to a moment where we're really aware what we've done. It comes to like flashbacks. Or maybe we go back to green, the feeling passes. But it's later that we reflect on what happened in the red zone. What caused us to get there? What was happening around us? What could we do in the future to be kinder to ourselves when we are there, which stops us staying there for as long? A bit of ruddy self-compassion, guys. But is there anything that we can reflect on that made us act the way we acted when we were in that zone? And that's the power of having a freeway traffic light. Not to just crucify ourselves because we entered a red zone moment again, but to approach it with openness, understanding, and if we've done things that, gosh, we regret, then make amends. If appropriate, make amends. Apologize to people. Tell them that you are sorry for how you behaved, that you felt you weren't in control. But look to make amends to see what can we do to stop it getting to that point again. What needs to change? What was going on around me? Maybe seek out counselling, someone like myself or another therapist. Maybe spend some time to talk about those red zone moments. And let's call it that. Let's call it red zone moments rather than really internalising it and allowing that shame to just keep us stuck at the stoplight forever. As a bonus, and slightly different to traffic lights, I mentioned partway through the talk that there are other ideas around zones or simplifying the complexity of emotional processing to make it more accessible. One of the ones I mentioned was Zones of Regulations by Leah Cooper. And the first zone is the blue zone. Blue zone incorporates feelings of sadness, tiredness, boredom, sickness. And we've got lovely feelings from the green zone of happiness, of calm, of focus, of pride. We have our yellow zone of emotions on the positive side that can incorporate excitement and silliness. But on the negative side, we may feel a bit frustrated or worried. And then finally, those strong feelings of the red zone of feeling elated, panicked, terrified, or angry. Autism Oxford, who I strongly recommend you checking out their profile if you're on Facebook. They also have a YouTube channel. Autism Oxford made an infographic on these zones of regulation, both talking about those 4 individual zones and also what you can do when you are in those zones, which I've stuck up on the screen. I really do recommend you just push pause the video and have a little read of it if you're interested in these. So, thank you for listening. I hope that in watching this that you found a different language to be able to talk about the feelings that you might be feeling, that you will be able to let go of any guilt you might feel about stepping into that red zone, and that you'll be able to apply this to have more self-awareness. It might be that you want to check out those other videos I mentioned as well, such as delving inside of ourselves by using a hot crossed bun to look at our thoughts, feelings, behaviours and sensations, or the video on grounding techniques to be able to find 30 different ways to centre ourselves if we are dysregulated and entering into the latter stages of the amber zone or into the red zone. My name's Simon. I am a person-centred counsellor based online, through phone, or face-to-face in Oxford. I'm also up for visiting your home if you live within the Ring Road. Feel free to contact me. My website is www.simonslistening.co.uk if you are interested in counselling and would like to maybe explore moments where you have started to lose control, or you just want to deepen that sense of affective empathy for your other people. You want to be able to get more in touch with yourself. I would love to journey with you. And do feel free to subscribe, check out any of the other videos on this channel, or you can check me out on Facebook at Simon's Listening Counselling Services. Thank you for listening. I genuinely wish you the best in developing emotional intelligence and being able to find that sense of control using traffic lights. Bye.